Okay, before we jump into the video, I just want to say I apologize that this video was uploaded late. As you will see in the video, there was some transitions that needed to take place. But as always, thank you for watching. If you haven't already, subscribe, like, share this video, and comment below and let me know your thoughts. All right, let's get into the video. Hey y'all, I done brought y'all this. I don't know what this is, okay? Can we not talk about this? Can we not talk about it, please? Can you stop looking at it? Okay, so I am at my school, and this is a room that is still being developed, but we're not at my house, because I'm so committed to this with y'all that I was like, let's get this video up and popping, okay? So we're gonna get right into it. If you are a returning viewer, what's up? Welcome back. If you are a new subscriber, hey, happy to have you. We are covering The Imperfections, The Gifts of Imperfections by Dr. Brené Brown. As always, it's never too late to purchase the book, and you can start at this video, or you are more than welcome to start at the last video, or from the beginning of the series, whatever you prefer, because all of this information is necessary. It does build on itself, but it is also independent of each other. So today we are talking about shame resilience 101, and I think there will be a part 2, and let's just get into it. This is gonna be a little weird video because I'm trying to gauge how loud I should be because there's an echo in the room. So I'm on page 39 if you have the book. 38. She opens with this. She says, here are the first 3 things you need to know about shame. 1, we all have it. It is universal, and it is one of the most primitive human emotions that we experience. The only people who don't experience shame lack the capacity for empathy and human connection. Number 2, we are all afraid to talk about shame, okay? And number 3, y'all see I like standing up. Get a little more body in it. Number 3, the less we talk about shame, the more control it has over our lives. I'm gonna say that one more time. The less we talk about shame, the more control it has over our lives. So I'm just gonna jump through the text. She goes on to say, shame is basically the fear of being unlovable. I love this statement because I was talking to my best friend the other day, and we were talking about some of our experiences that we kind of tiptoe around sharing with new people, right? Particularly people we are newly dating, or we would like to date, and so we're kind of in that like getting to know you stage, and it like was a conversation that worked well with this series, and how we were asking ourselves, like, you know, is this something that I've been delaying because this person should be worthy of this information, or am I ashamed of the information because it's my truth, and I know that my truth is something that everyone I should be willing to share with people, but I also know that not everyone is worthy of this truth because of what it can be met with, right? And so I think this is amazing because it says shame is basically the fear of being unlovable, which makes me think, regardless of which category it falls in, did we convince ourselves that telling this to someone puts them in a position to devalue if we're lovable? Does that make sense? And then secondly, she says, shame keeps worthiness away by convincing us that owning our stories will lead people to think less of us. Shame is all about fear. We're afraid that people won't like us if they know the truth about who we are, where we come from, what we believe, how much we're struggling, or, believe it or not, how wonderful we are when we're soaring. And then she says, sometimes it's hard to own our strengths, just as hard as it is to own our struggles. And so these 2 quotes, I wrote down a question, and it says, maybe we should address what makes me lovable. right? Because if we are avoiding telling someone something, it's because we assume it will make us unlovable, right? So the question we have to ask ourselves is, what makes us lovable? And if we're going to be honest, we usually think the things that are perfect, right? The things that are worthy of being on a resume, the things that we don't mind posting on social media. But when I wrote this question down, I wrote, what makes me lovable? And my answer was, I just am. Like, we have to get into the mindset that it's not what I do, it's not my strengths, it's not the areas that I've perfected that make me lovable, and it's not my weaknesses that make me lovable. I'm worthy of love in every state of my life. I want you to declare that to yourself. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy in general in every state of my life. When I'm overweight, when I'm in shape, when I'm broke, when I'm wealthy, when I have one car, when I have no cars, when I have a house, when I have an apartment, when I have a child, when I'm, absent of a child, when I'm choosing to be sexually active, when I'm celibate, when I'm in a good position with Christ, when I'm in a backslidden position, I'm worthy. I am worthy, especially of love. And so if you struggle with that concept, you might want to start there too. What do I associate being lovable to? Because just going back to the comment my best friend and I were discussing, or the conversation we were having, it's like, are we presenting facades, right? And then when we feel safe, which is wisdom, I think, we take it off because this person is trustworthy, yes. But in owning your story, there are some things about you that you have to just make your truth. And I ended up telling her, I'm like, this is going to be your testimony. So regardless of how you're doing things now, this is a part of what God is, doing in her life. And you're going to, the goal is for you to get to a place where this is something that you tell people by way of introduction, by way of explaining where you are, why you are where you are, etc., right? And so I think when we own our stories, it means that we tell shame, you have no place here, because this is who I am. And when I tell my story, it doesn't raise my value, and it also doesn't devalue me, because at every state, I'm worthy. I hope that makes sense. So anyway, moving along, she says, and I love this. So that was question number 1, what makes me lovable? You got to unpack that. And then number 2, am I wearing shame? She goes on in the text and she says, while it feels as if shame hides in our darkest corners, it actually tends to lurk in all of the familiar places, including appearance and body image, family, parenting, money and work, health, addiction, sex, aging, and religion. Shame shows itself in all those places. I love that so much, because if you would just take a moment, and you can pause me, to think about it, shame has a way of whispering to us in all those spaces. I mean, in what we wear, and how we posture ourselves, and how we spend or don't spend our money, what our sexual experiences are like. Even, and I'm not married, but I could imagine that we bring shame with us into our marriages, right? In the bedroom space, some people have shame around the fact that they didn't wait till marriage. Some people wait till marriage and then they have shame about insecurities. And I mean, shame just be like, this is shame. Shame is like my bun, just peeking his little head into stuff. But then she says, to feel shame is to be human. I love that. She humanizes the very thing that we want to remove, that we sometimes don't want to talk about. Okay, so then the next thing she says is, in addition to the fear of disappointing people, right, or pushing them away with our stories, we are afraid that if we tell our stories, the weight of a single experience will collapse upon us. There is a real fear that we can be buried or defined by an experience that, in reality, is only a slither of who we are. I love that. in addition to the fear of disappointing people. I want us to be free, y'all. Like, this series is so freeing to me, because the more I unpack this with y'all and the more experiences God gives me with other people, I find myself pausing more and thinking like, okay, you know, when I'm on the phone or I'm texting or someone's asking me a question and I can feel fear rising, I have to ask myself, do I want to belong here or am I fitting in? Am I hustling for my worth, or do I know that I'm worthy? Does my answer tell this person that I'm owning my story? Am I being authentic? Like, these are the questions that come to mind when I interact with people about touchy subjects, right? And I love that she says, in addition to the fear of disappointing people or pushing them away, our story has the ability to scare someone or push them away. That's almost like, when you really think about it, it's almost like, it's weird, and it's a really selfish way of doing business with people, that their truth becomes our problem. Should not be, but that's like what happens in relationships, right? I tell you my truth, and instead of you being compassionate and you being present and you listening and you appreciating the fact that I'm sharing this with you, you take my truth and you make a decision, right? That's another topic for another day. She says, in addition to the fear of disappointing people or pushing them away with our stories, we're also afraid that if we tell our stories, the weight of a single experience, one experience, right? And we want to live forever. We want to live till we're 80 and 100. One experience will collapse upon us. There is a real fear that we can be buried or defined by an experience that in reality is only a sliver of who we are. She goes on to say, she tells the story about a woman who finally, you know, her and her neighbor, I guess they have had a good relationship. One day she says, she woke up one day to tell her neighbor, she says that she was a recovering alcoholic. Oh my goodness, I think that's my bell. She was a recovering alcoholic, and the lady responds with, I'm not sure if I'm comfortable with my kids playing at your house anymore. So this is where shame, you know, creeps its head in. And the woman responds, the woman who shared her truth with her neighbor, she responds and she says, but they've played here for 2 years and I've been sober for 20 years. I'm not any different than I was 10 minutes ago. So why are you? And so on this point, I want you to know, this is how we fight back and we respond to shame. This is one of the ways. We have to acknowledge it when it wants to take precedence in our space. Because a lot of us, you know, if someone makes our truth define us in that moment, or someone responds in a way that makes us feel suddenly unworthy, we walk away from those encounters, right? Like, we would have had that exchange with our neighbor and been like, dang, okay, well, if you don't want your kids to be over here no more, that's fine. You know, offended and feeling rejected and not knowing how to say, like, that hurt my feelings and things like that. But instead she says, but they've been here for 2 years. So what changed? Like, holding both parties accountable to what is happening. Shame is being allowed here. Shame is being given. Shame is being projected. And that doesn't mean that she didn't go in her house and feel some type of way, but I do believe that this is a great way to respond to shame when it presents itself in spaces. I have to come back because that was my bell and I'm a teacher, but we'll be back. All right, y'all, welcome back. We are on the couch again, and I did a little thing with my hair. Same woman, just pulled the bun down because it was getting on my nerves. Still needs to be washed. Okay, let's get back into it. So we're on page 40, and she says, now this is important, okay? This, ultimately, we're about to bring it all home. Shame resilience is the ability to recognize shame. I'm gonna say that one more time. Shame resilience is the ability to recognize shame, to move through it constructively while maintaining worthiness and authenticity. What does constructively mean? Glad you asked. Constructively means in a way that has or is intended to have a useful or beneficial purpose. So let's connect these dots and continue reading. Shame resilience is the ability to recognize shame, to move through it in a way that has or is intended to have a useful or beneficial purpose. Okay? While maintaining worthiness and authenticity, and to ultimately develop more courage, compassion, and connection as a result of the experience. That is loaded. The first thing we need to understand about shame resilience, Brene says, is that the less we talk about shame, the more we have it. The less we discuss the shame that we are experiencing, the more we experience shame. But to be resilient, to be shame resilient, is the ability to recognize shame. So this story in my life has a lot of shame around it. This discussion has a lot of shame within it. This truth of mine makes me feel shameful. And to move through it constructively. So I identify the shame. I'm going to navigate through the shame in a way that is intended to be purposeful or beneficial to me, while maintaining. So while I'm navigating through this shame, I'm going to maintain my awareness of my worthiness. And while I'm navigating through the shame, I'm going to remain authentic. Because sometimes shame causes us to like kind of get small. She says, and ultimately to develop more courage, navigating through shame, remaining worthy and remaining authentic will absolutely exercise that courage muscle. Compassion, right? So when we are allowing people to sit in our space with us, when we are sitting in other people's shame storm or a conversation about something that's causing them to feel shame. And connection. Usually when we're dealing with shame, we can deal with it by, like, we can feel it and experience it by ourselves, but to really address it, call it out, bring it into the light, includes another person. So connection, right? She says, as a result of our experience, the first thing we need to understand about shame is that the less we talk about shame, the more we have it. Now, we're almost done. She says, shame needs 3 things. I need my nails done. Please don't, y'all. Please don't judge me. They're gonna get done. Shame needs 3 things to grow out of control in our lives. The first one is secrecy. The second one is silence. And the third thing is judgment. She says, when something shaming happens and we keep it locked up, it festers and grows. It consumes us. She said we need to share our experience. Shame happens between people and it heals between people. Plot twist. Shame loses power when it is spoken. I think that is extremely self-explanatory. Shame happens between people and it heals between people. It loses its power when it is spoken. Ooh, that's so good. So to close out this video, though we will still be talking about shame in the next video, she says, after a decade of research, I found that men and women with high levels of shame resilience share these 4 elements. Please take notes, y'all. Number 1, they understand shame and recognize what messages and expectations trigger shame for them. They understand shame and recognize what messages and expectations trigger shame for them. This is the first thing that people with high levels of shame resiliency share. Number 2, she says they practice critical awareness by reality checking the messages and expectations that tell us that being perfect means being adequate. I love that. Number 3, they reach out and share their stories with people they trust. Number 4, they speak shame. They use the word shame. They talk about how they're feeling and they ask for what they need. So my closing questions will be, do you experience these 4 levels? I'm sorry, do you experience these 4 elements when it comes to shame? First of all, I think, and forgive me if this transition is weird, like my energy shifted because I wanted to make sure this video was posted. But I think it's something to be said about a person who can say, I'm feeling a lot of shame around this, right? So I would ask you, first and foremost, do you use that word? Sometimes we don't even want to use certain words because it lets people in. It literally gives light to our situation. Like, it shines light on it. Like, okay, so you're dealing with shame. You're ashamed. It says they speak shame. They use the word. They talk about how they're feeling and they ask for what they need. Number 2, they reach out and share their stories with people they trust. At this point in the series, if you have not identified the people you trust, I'm begging you to think about, who do you trust? And if you don't have people, right? Because that's a real thing. Sometimes we just don't have anyone that we trust. If that is your situation, I encourage you to, 1, pray about community. And 2, I want you to reassess the people you do have and see who you might want to develop better relationship with. Because I truly believe unless we are just isolated, which sometimes can be the case, we have people, we just haven't invested time into them yet. We haven't given that relationship enough nurturing. If you are truly in a place of isolation, then your task is to get out there and meet people. And I know that can be overwhelming. I know that can bring on anxiety. But I believe that when you let God know that your request is for community, He will begin to show you people that will partner with you, that will pair with you, that will love you, that want to be in your life as much as you want to be in theirs. But you got to make the intention known in your prayer closet and then let the intention be visible in your posture. Okay? And we can talk about that in another video. She said they practice critical awareness by reality checking the messages and expectations that tell us being imperfect means being inadequate. Y'all, that is an entire video in itself. But if you deal with shame because you pride yourself on being perfect, or you have accepted the fact that being imperfect equals inadequacy, we have to go back to the drawing boards. In the beginning of this video, I asked you, what makes you lovable? Well, now I would ask you, what does perfection look like? Like, really spell it out. And then I would want to know, do you think it's ridiculous? Right? Because perfection, when I think of people who are perfectionists, I think of people who are constipated, and people who really have a skewed perception of themselves. And that's another topic for another day. But she says people with high levels of shame resiliency, they are critical thinkers of what they are accepting, like what messages are they receiving, and what expectations are they projecting or people are projecting onto them that confirms and affirms that inadequacy equals imperfection or imperfection equals inadequacy, that they are synonymous. That's not true. No. And then they understand shame and recognize what messages and expectations trigger shame for them. So sometimes you have to ask yourself, what language and what messages and what expectations in my relationships can make me feel shameful. It can be something as small as like you needing to be in a position to need help. You have to assess that. Okay, so we're gonna pick this back up. There was a lot in this video, but I think shame is such an interesting topic to talk about because we do all experience it. And I think if we can normalize and neutralize the discussion around it, I think we truly can have what she said, which is develop more courage, compassion, and connection. I love that she says shame resilience is the ability to recognize shame. Like, we want to get to a place where we can be in a conversation or be in a situation and say, whoa, I am experiencing shame. and then constructively navigate through these waters and say, okay, I need to be connected to someone. I need to be extending compassion to myself. I need someone to be compassionate to me. I am still worthy, though this situation is making me feel shameful. I'm not going to lie about where I am, though I'm feeling shameful. I'm going to navigate through this because everything that I'm experiencing and everything that I'm learning is useful and beneficial to me and how I want to evolve. The relationships that I want to be a part of, the relationships that I want to be in, the behavior that I want to demonstrate will be people who accept shame, we talk about shame, and we practice shame resiliency. The less we talk about shame, the more we have it. And so my closing question is, what are you most ashamed of right now? Like, what are you struggling with? What are you most ashamed of? And I want you to go and tell your community that. I want you to tell someone you trust that. This is how we put these things into practice. It sounds good to hear me talk about it. I know you're like, yes, like, okay. But the behavior change takes place when you get off of the video and you say, you know what? This doesn't feel good, but I'm going to do it because I need to exercise this underutilized muscle. And the first time I tell my friend who I trust something that is shameful to me, and she cultivates or he cultivates a safe space, I'm going to remember that and I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to do it again. And now shame has no weight in my life because I'm talking about it. I'm constructively navigating through it. I'm seeing connection. I'm being compassionate. I'm assessing expectations and messages that I've both projected and am receiving. And shame does not have room here. Shame cannot have weight here. Shame is not a residence here. Shame has to go. So I appreciate y'all rocking with me with my bun, with me in my class schedule, with me in my couch, with me in my nails. That's going to look so much better because I've been just, look at me, y'all. Look. It's been a rough week, okay? But I just needed to really get this posted because I'm committed to this, and I know people are probably like, where's the video? And so if you have been rocking with me and you knew that I was late today, I'm so sorry. Love you for knowing. Appreciate you for being subscribed. Appreciate you for liking and watching and sharing. Don't you worry, next week I'm gonna be back on it. The coronavirus and just school and stuff has just been like throwing me for loops. So I don't have it, praise God. I'm just saying, like, as a teacher, just having to prepare and stuff, it just has me kind of off my game today. But that's all right. Tuesday will be here before you know it. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see y'all later. Bye.